On today's Locked On Texans podcast, which undrafted rookie free agent has an opportunity to be impactful on this roster with camp starting next week? And we take a look at Calen Bullock and his potential impact in year one.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Wake them up. Listen, while y'all listen to this Locked On Texans podcast on Wednesday, thank you for all of our first-time listeners and viewers. This is the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Stopping by for the first time, get cozy, get relaxed. Please subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Also follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texans. Thank you to all of our returning listeners coming back as Cody and I continue to talk Texans. I'm your Texans football analyst, Johnson Sports Guy Hickman. On the other side of the screen, Texans credentialed media member, Sports Illustrated's own, Cody Davis. Fun show for you guys today, as always, right? We take a look at the undrafted rookie defensive and offensive prospects from the 2024 draft after the draft season. Cody and I also take a look at Calen Bullock's. What will his impact look like in year one? And I think also just moving forward, what type of player and what type of impact can he have on a defense led by D'Amico Ryans? But today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Before we get started, I do want to give a shout out to Big Sarge on his latest article on Substack, where you can find it, Big Sarge Media on Substack. He talked about the 7th round tackle out of Michigan, Henderson, Ladarius Henderson. You also can, again, subscribe Big Sarge Media on Substack. He mentioned how, they're different, the difference between Henderson and Blake Fisher also did dawn on me until he mentioned it in the article. Cody, Henderson just played in the NRG Stadium not too long ago because that's where the national championship was held. So just kind of seeing how things come all together for your future. He's also a guy that, has a strong faith, started Bible study in a prayer group on campus with his teammates. So that's pretty dope. We got a good guy, and I think he fits one of those tough, smart, dependable player that we were trying to get away from, but,
No.
can't help it.
Don't bring that back. They're no longer called smart, tough, dependable. They're just called swarm mentality type of guys. That's what I'm sticking to. And when I know you all like that, but I'd rather that than smart, tough, dependable. We're not dependent on the past anymore. We're not looking at the past. We're looking towards the future. When you look at the future, John, I think the Houston Texans got one of the steals of the draft when you take a look at the fact that they had an opportunity to draft Calen Bullock with the number 78th overall pick. You guys should already know I am extremely high on Bullock because this safety unit played a big role into the struggles that we saw with the Houston Texans giving up an average of 234 yards per game. And like I mentioned, every time we talk about the secondary, and anytime we talk about Coach D'Amico Ryans and his desire to improve the defense, D'Amico said part of the reason why he wants to improve this defense on all three levels because you have to go up against some of the league's best quarterbacks in order to get to that championship that they want. And of course, when you talk about the best quarterback, you got to go up against the best quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. This team got eliminated by Lamar Jackson in the playoffs. And John, I think when you take a look at Calen Bullock, man, as of right now, and I'm basing this off of if Jimmy Ward can stay healthy and if Jalen Petrie can get back to the player that we saw through his rookie year or come close to it, I think if anything, man, this young man is literally going to have an opportunity to not only keep and improve this roster, but he's just going to add depth because the one thing that I know about Coach D'Amico Ryans, he loves to utilize his safeties as much as possible. And you got a versatile safety like Calen Bullock. This young man is going to do wonders for the Houston Texans defense just as a reserve player alone.
I 100% agree. And when I look at Bullock again, one point that you made to this point, Jimmy Ward, 44% of the defensive snaps played last year. Of course, he missed a handful of games. Houston Carson, 41% of the defensive snaps played last year. Eric Murray, 15% of the defensive snaps. Graylin Arnold, a little bit over 12.5. Jalen Petrie, 79% of the defensive snaps. Those are your Kareem Jackson didn't spend a lot of time here in Houston last year, but right under 4% of the snaps. Adrian Amos, a little bit under 8.5% of the defensive snaps. Those are all your safeties, and all of those players got some moments for Houston where they were on the field. So you look at that, and to your point, yes, with his talent, he'll be on the field. You look at Nick Caserio, right? He had an opportunity to talk about him, and he mentioned what was exciting about drafting Calen Bullock out of USC. Said whatever his production has been pretty significant. He's rangy. You love to hear that when you talk about a safety. He covers ground well. You love to hear that. He plays the ball well. You love to hear that. He has good movement skills for a safety. Started his career off as a corner. He's not a corner, but he moves well for a player that's 6'2", 190 pounds. Nick Caserio also mentioned that, he's had some of the best football probably in front of him. He needs to get stronger. He'll be the first to tell you that. So you listen to how Nick Caserio described Bullock in his game. And then D'Amico Ryan's having an opportunity to talk about him. Mentioned ball skills. Mentioned his range back there deep in the field. Mentioned his playmaking ability, how he attacks the ball, right? That's what Bullock does. That's what we're looking for him to do for us. And again, he's an ascending player, only 21 years old, has a lot of football left in him. He's also coming from a program that I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the USC defense was so bad they fired their defensive coordinator midway through the year.
Mm-hmm. I do know they gave up an average of, I want to say, about 30 to 35 points per game, because I've been writing a lot about ridiculous. The two prospects.
That's ridiculous, right? So you look at a defense that, because when I look at Bullock, and I was talking to John Crumple about this, when I look at Bullock, I do understand that tackling is where he needs to get better, right? And that comes with putting on weight and being confident in your ability to make that contact and secure a tackle. And I think that's where angle-wise, you may see him, I don't want to say play a little bit scared, but avoiding some of that contact at times as a tackler. But when I see his tape, the angles that he takes as a tackler, total opposite from the angles he takes when the ball is in the air. He plays that deep well. I mean, from sideline to sideline, is there a safety that you trust on this team right now? You can say, hey, listen, we need for you to go out there. It's 3rd and 11. We need for you to cover the deep third of the field by yourself, single high. We got our corners out there. We got Stingler who's on fire. We got Okuda. We may have Lassiter, whoever who's playing well right now. We need for you to make sure if the ball is in the air deep, you can make a play on it. Is that play on his roster right now? Health-wise consideration and just the lack of playmaking ability that we saw last year when we look at Jalen Petrie? I don't think so. And I think that's where Bullock can step in and have a role on this team. Will he play over 60% of the defensive snaps? Will he play over 50? Maybe, maybe not. But his role, I think, coming in is clear, in my opinion, which is why I think Houston liked him and drafted him. We need somebody who we can trust back deep, that if we want to dial up some pressure up front, we have our two corners on the outside. A lot of time, Houston will be in nickel, so we'll have a nickel out there being able to hold their own. But if their ball is in the air, we're not getting beat to the point where, again, you look at last year, what was it, 23rd passing defense in the NFL?
Mm-hmm.
One interception between the two starting safeties last year, right? Again, a handful of games missed for Jalen Petrie, so health is a concern. And I mean, not for Jalen Petrie, Jimmy Ward. And when you look at Jalen Petrie, we could say it was year 2 in a different system, but some of the things that he was doing was, I think, beyond rookie mistakes. I think they were mainly like collegiate mistakes that he was making. So I like what Bullock can bring to this team. I think Houston wants to create more turnovers as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Jalen Petrie dropped 4 interceptions last year. He had those opportunities, the same opportunities I think he had during his rookie year, he had in his sophomore year, just wasn't able to come down with it. Overall, Cody, and stop me if I'm wrong, I think we'll see Bullock maybe one of the more impactful rookies in 2024. Yes, Kamari Lassiter comes up. K Stover is a name, right? Jawad Jordan is a name. But the ability that Bullock has, I think, sets him apart from everybody else for being able to do one thing very well. Also, considering there's nobody else on this roster currently, how it's put together, that you just can say, I trust this player to be able to win on 3rd and 11 back deep and not allow a big offensive play.
He might be the most impactful rookie. And I'm not just saying that because we're talking about it, but even when we look at Kamari Lassiter, he's in a situation where, look, he's going to be good in the system. I'm pretty sure when it's all said and done, he's going to be starting alongside Derek Stingley Jr. However, John, you still got to take into consideration, at least for the first half of the year, I can see a situation where he's going to be splitting snaps with Jeff Okudah. Versus when you take a look at Bullock, he's going to get majority of his snaps because that means one of those starting safety, they ain't doing what they supposed to be doing, plain and simple. And like we always talked about when we talk about that safety unit, whether that be Jalen Petrie still not getting back to the player that he was during his rookie season, or Jimmy Ward just either not being healthy or finally his age and production is going to start slowing down. Because even when he was healthy, we still did not see that much of the Jimmy Ward that we saw in San Fran the last 2 years.
And I do want to add to that. You want to know what Jimmy Ward played there last year, where he was like, people believe that he could still come over and be impactful as a player.
Nickel,
he was
right?
Nickel.
I remember that.
So I think Bullock does allow Houston to get creative. Petrie still is on his team. And by no means are we just saying it's time for Houston to move on from Petrie or whatever. No, I think it's time for Houston to have a role for Petrie to be able to maximize what he does well. And if Bullock can go out there and be that deep safety that Houston really needs, you can get creative with that, right? So I think that's the case, Cody. Also, you look at Nick Caserio and how he described Calen Bullock. Again, he said that he's an eraser in the deep part of the field, ran a 4.5. Again, he mentioned how he has to improve as a tackler, which goes back to improving his strength. He also mentioned hopefully our program will be beneficial to him in that respect. He's an ascending player, only 21 years old. He's a young player, been in college for 3 years, played as a true freshman, but he goes on to say a versatile player. I can say that was certainly a player that the head coach was exciting to get on the team. They know they need somebody that can take away the deep part of that field on the back end of their defense. And I believe Bullock is one of them. I've been calling for a single high safety for a few months now. So Houston going out there and doing it is damn good. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What's the first thing you do if you had an extra hour in your day, Cody? If you had one more hour, 25 instead of 24, what's something you do?
Probably get one more extra hour of sleep that I would need.
Yeah, I think a lot of us would do that. We would probably take a nap, go for a run, read a book, maybe show up for your friends. But a lot of us spend our times wishing we had more time. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suitable to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this Wednesday installment of Locked On Texans. Before we move on to our next topic, John, I do want to go back to our last conversation. You made a really good point talking about the Houston Texans wanting to create more turnovers for this upcoming season. And it's the truth, because I remember that's something Coach D'Amico Ryans did talk about in terms of improving his defense. And when you take a look at the takeaways, the Houston Texans recorded 24 takeaways last season. 14 came in interceptions. However, 5 came from Darius Stingley Jr. and 4 came from Steven Nelson. So if you take away those 2 guys, you're looking at a situation where nobody on the defensive side of the ball for the Houston Texans did a good job recording interceptions. However, when you take a look at Calen Bullock, this young man finished his collegiate career with 9 interceptions. And in 2022 alone, he recorded a career best 5. This young man is going to be very special here in the city of Houston.
Hey, speaking of Steven Nelson, man, I know he didn't go out I guess whatever people would classify as the right way. But
nah, he didn't.
He played good football for Houston, right?
Yes, he did.
4 picks last year. At times was this team's #1 cornerback. And also you got to give him a lot of credit for, mustering through that pain and injury he was suffering as well. So shout out to
foot
Steven
injury.
Nelson. Yeah, hopefully his next stop will be, a great one for him. A lot of people didn't respect what he did here in Houston, but I did, and I would appreciate that. He played a huge role in helping Houston get to the playoffs. But now let's turn our sights to the undrafted prospects from the 2024 NFL draft. Of course, undrafted for the Houston Texans free agents. Let's take a look at the undrafted rookies. British Brooks, running back, UNC, rushed for nearly 850 yards, 7 TDs last year. Tariq Barnes, linebacker, Illinois. He recorded 190 tackles and 5.5 sacks during his 5-year career at Illinois. Jaden and Jackson Yankee, wide receivers out of South Dakota, 2,800 yards on 170 catches for Jaden. Jackson recorded over 3,600 yards on 244 receptions. Linebacker Max Tooley, BYU, recorded 311 career tackles, probably the best prospect of all these players. 92 total tackles, 53 solo tackles, 2 pass breakups, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 interception in 2023. And Feldarius Payne from Virginia Tech, he recorded 71 tackles and 7 sacks. Let's take a look at the offensive side. And for me, Cody, the 2 players that stand out the most are the twins, honestly. I think there's some good talent here for Houston. I think that they are focused. Houston is focused on replicating what was started last year, and that's a lot of competition on this roster. This is a team that truly values their practice squad. I can see some of these youngins coming in and competing with some of the vets that could potentially make this roster and fighting for a practice squad spot. The Yankee twins, I think, might be the most intriguing of the undrafted rookie free agents on the offensive side of the ball. Very good careers at South Dakota. I think they can come in and make camp fun. So, Cody, please elaborate this year, because I know if I say this name or these names, people may not understand what I mean when I say that, right? But you were out there. K. Scott was out there. Cole Thompson was out there. Sarge was out there. Landry Locker was out there. We had a few guys that was out there. Stan was out there that can vouch for this. Also, considering this is a different wide receiving core this year compared to last year. But when you look at players like Alec Bachman, Jared Wayne, Adam Humphreys, what they did last year, running with the third team at that time, getting some second team runs, they made camp competitive. They made camp tough on whoever was behind them, and even at times I thought maybe a couple of players in front of them. I thought maybe Alec Bachman would probably get the nod over Robert Woods at one point. I mean, he was making a lot of plays for the Houston Texans. So can you – I know you can vouch for that. Like, just last year, comparing how Kemp was last year with some of the guys that ended up on a practice squad or, had to retire or maybe just didn't make the roster altogether. How competitive was that camp last year?
Man, it was extremely competitive, because when you look at a guy like Alec Bachman, this guy was the definition of why training camp is important to a lot of these guys, because not only was he stepping up when needed for that third team. I believe he played majority of his snaps in training camp alongside Case Keenum at the time, but he also made it very hard and very competitive in special teams as well. John, there were several moments where I thought that he was going to make this team 53-man roster just based off of what he provided this team on special teams alone. And that wide receiving core was extremely crowded because at the time it was like, okay, maybe Nico Collins can take the helm as wide receiver number one, but after him, everybody else was a toss-up. I remember, I think at the time he was like, best case scenario, wide receiver number two is going to be Robert Woods. Boy, look how that turned out. There was even some questions regarding Tank Dell at the time. And that was during the time we really didn't know how special Tank Dell was going to be.
Got a chance to see it, though, as practice, because there weren't acrobatic catches made.
Well, after that, he just shot up everybody depth chart, especially mine. Because remember, I thought he was just going to be on special teams doing kick and punt returns. Boy, was I wrong, and thank God. But I go back and I take a look at Alec Bachman, man. This young man brought it every single day throughout training camp. I hated knowing that he did not get a real opportunity to showcase what he was able to do during preseason. I believe maybe his best game might have came against the Miami Dolphins, where he had like 3 catches for like 20 or 30 yards, somewhere along those lines. But let's say, put it like this, to understand how valuable and how great Alec Bachman was throughout training camp. Let's say, for the sake of this argument, if Tank Dell doesn't emerge as a true threat, or if Noah Brown doesn't emerge as a true target, you are looking at a situation where Alex Bachman probably would have been part of this 53-man roster. Now, I'm not saying that just to say, he would have came in and been wide receiver 2 or 3 or anything like that, but you was going to have to look at this roster and say, how do you give a rookie like CJ Stroud an opportunity to go out there and help this ball move down the field? Which means you're looking at other guys like Johnny Johnson Jr. III, or my guy, Jared Wayne, who was also going out there and looking really good throughout training camp. But once again, due to the emergence of somebody like Tank Dell and not Robert Woods and Noah Brown, that basically made everything fall in line a lot easier. But John, you look at these twins, man, put it like this. They're going to continue the competitiveness that Nick Caserio and Coach D'Amico Ryans love to see. And I'm looking at it from a standpoint. You look at somebody like Johnny Johnson III, who has been here since 2021. That's somebody we've been rooting for, but unfortunately, regardless of what's going on, whether what we see during training camp, practice, or what's going on behind closed doors, he has yet to get a fair opportunity, along with Steven Sims as well. I can see a situation where these twins come in and basically take their spot and be somebody that they could utilize on special teams, and be somebody they could utilize on practice squad, and be somebody that you could utilize. Look, if this person get injured, if that person get injured, or if this person just isn't stepping up, they'd be able to utilize them in order to help this offense moving forward. But Alec Bachman, man, that was my guy.
And I look at Jaden Yankee, kick return yards in his career of 444 in 2022, 162, 21, 198, no TDs. That's just for kick return. Punt return, 160 in 2022. Like these young men, they have a shot to, at the very least, stick around for the practice squad. And that's what I wanted to highlight. Houston really does take their practice squad serious, the players that they put on their practice squad seriously. Last year, we saw Steven Sims, Khalil Davis, Kobe Francis, Brandon Hill, Johnny Johnson III, and Derek Rivers. All of those were practice squad players that had an opportunity to take a snap for Houston. And I do want to exclude Derek Rivers from that. But the other players, they all had an opportunity to come in from that practice squad when players went down and be featured in a regular season game at some point. Once you get to the 30, 32 roster spots, teams normally look to fill special teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
And evaluate players that's standing out. So before we look at the defensive players, I think both Jaden and Jackson will have an opportunity to stand out in their own way. and I would be curious to see if they are coming in to compete on special teams and, whether it be just getting down there or returning punts and kick returns. But both of those two players, of the undrafted rookie offensive prospects, one of those two, and I would probably lean towards Jaden, will have an opportunity to stick around moving forward, whether it be practice squad or a special teams opportunity. Guys, you should not have to worry about buying tickets to your next big event because Game Time is fast. Game Time is easy. Game Time is the best way to place your order for tickets for sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start time of the event. In some cases, even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute tickets, find exclusive flash deals, sponsored deals on tickets for sports, basketball, baseball, concert, comedy, theater events, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats for big-time savings. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKED ON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKED ON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. As we continue to talk about maybe some of the players that are put on the practice squad, have an opportunity to get put on the practice squad as we focus on the undrafted defensive prospects, I do want to mention this. If you do your job and if you stand out and you get out there and you bust some butt, right, and it's undeniable that you deserve a chance, you could be the next Khalil Davis. So as we continue to talk about the undrafted defensive prospects, Cody, who do you have? I like the linebacker, man.
Max Tooley.
I like Max. I like what I'm seeing from him.
I like Max, and I also like Tyreek Barnes too, which, by the way, fun fact about Khalil Davis, he was actually signed a week before the start of training camp. So he was already behind the 8-ball, and now he officially has a roster spot for this upcoming season. But of course, man, when you take a look at these undrafted free agents on the defensive side of the ball, like I just mentioned, Barnes, Tooley, both of these guys are linebackers. And to me, John, I think Coach DeMeco Ryans is trying to keep his options open on how do you not only continue to improve this linebacker unit, but most importantly, how do you replace the services of Blake Cashman? Because when you take a look at Tyreek Barnes from Illinois, this young man is good on all three levels. He can get after the quarterback, he can stop the run, and he can make plays on the ball as well. When you take a look at Tooley, he's the same thing. He can get after the quarterback, he could stop the run, and he could make plays on the ball. And what did we love most about Blake Cashman? He excelled on all three levels. And when you take a look at this linebacker unit, outside of Al Shazier, John, I don't really think the Houston Texans did that great of a job retooling this linebacker unit. Yes, you still have Christian Harris. I'm big on Al Shazier, but outside
we got to talk HT later in the week too, man.
Yeah,
like, where does he
exactly.
fit in these plans?
Exactly. And look, and that's why I was going next. Like, outside of those two, it's hard for me to point to a reliable linebacker that I have confidence in. Because like you mentioned, HT, Henry T, is he going to be able to take that leap and fix what he needs to fix in year two in order to be a primary player for Coach DeMeco Ryans in this system? If not him, what you going to get out of Burns? What are you going to get out of Tooley? Like, I just think in terms of what we're hearing a lot about the roster that they was able to build throughout the draft. Competition, this is the perfect example, man.
Yeah, it is. And I think, again, these guys – because Jamal Hill was a late round pick, so it's not a lot separating Hill from Tooley, and I like Tooley again to give you guys his numbers. Tooley, 311 career tackles, 92, 53 solo, 2 pass breakups, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 recovery, 1 pick last year. So you're looking at a player that can get after the ball in different ways. You're looking at a guy that can tackle, right? You're looking at a guy that will bring a opposing offender down. So I wouldn't be shocked if we're looking in August, at the end of July, beginning of August, and we're looking at a camp battle between Hill and Thule, right? I think with D'Amico Ryans, man, and he talked about it, how much he can't wait to get back to coaching and just developing players. I think with Ryans, he loves, because he said it, the most exciting thing to me about coaching is developing guys, seeing where they are. You select guys who have the traits you like. So obviously they're here for a reason. Traits that you think will help translate to this team and help win. Then as coaches, we have to help them. We got to find a few steps to get them to. We got to go through the steps to get them to maximize their talent and play to their capability. So they are here for a reason. And anytime a linebacker is going to be brought to Houston, my first thought is going to be, what does D'Amico Ryans feel he can get out of that player? And Hill, Thule, the other undrafted rookie linebacker,
Tyree Barnes.
Barnes, right? How does he feel if he can get his hands on them? They'll be able to be contributors to this team again. Practice squad is an opportunity for him. Special teams is an opportunity for him. You'll see Houston, who as of right now, Neville Hewitt is still on this roster. Jacob Phillips, Delshon Phillips.
I'm not counting Neville Hewitt. He's
special
teams
team
going through.
But like I'm getting at, right? He's here, and the first thing you said is he's special teams. So who's to say that during camp we're not looking at Hewitt, we're not looking at Thule, we're not looking at Hill, we're not looking at Barnes, and of those 4 prospects, we're not thinking to ourselves, Hewitt had a good run, right? He's a vet, he's a little bit older, but right now, man, these guys are doing some things during preseason on special teams, during training camp and practice. They're doing some things that is just a little bit better than Hewitt right now. So I think if we look at all the positions drafted and undrafted, I think the linebacker position is a little bit intriguing, probably the most, because there's a little bit more uncertainty to that position than it is wide receiver, than it is running back, right? Than it is any offensive line. Harris, Al-Shaair, HT, Henry Toto.
That's it.
Those are your 3, right? And let me see if I'm missing anybody.
Nah, that's it.
Those are your 3.
Tomorrow, those will be your 3. And there's a big question mark surrounding Henry T.
Right. And I think that question mark will die down once Kemp gets here. But you got 2 linebackers for sure your starters. Henry is a depth rotational piece. After that, you're a little lonely. You're a little lonely. So of all these positions, that's the one I think will be the most competitive.
Well, we talked a lot about training camp, but a lot of these guys, especially if you take a look at Barnes, Hill, Thule, their competition starts as soon as next Friday, because that's when the Houston Texans start rookie mini camp. And then from there, you have OTAs and mandatory OTAs. And then next thing you know is training camp. So look, Coach D'Amico Ryans, Nick Caserio, they use the word competition a lot over these last couple of days. And man, this is going to be very interesting to see how the back half of this 53-man roster for the Houston Texans shape up in 2024.
Thank you guys for listening and watching to the Locked On Texans podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube. Also give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Texans. Give me a follow at John_Hickman12.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, COTYDAVIS_24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.